All right. Well, thank you all again for being here today for another edition of SCF's webinar series. Today's topic will highlight SCF's proprietary financing platform, the SCF Suite, discussing recent changes we made to improve the experience for our integrator partners, as well as showcase how you can use the SCF Suite to shave weeks, even months off your usual C&I timeline. Today's agenda is as follows. We'll touch on who SCF is and our experience in developing C&I solar projects over our 13-year operating history. We'll follow that up with a quick update on SCF's offerings and some new strategies that we're deploying to stay competitive in today's market. We'll then go through a demo of the SCF Suite platform, highlighting changes that we've made and showcasing how the SCF Suite can be used to help you move through your pipeline more efficiently and ultimately bring you to project execution faster. We'll finish off by discussing next steps and answering any questions you may have. Let's begin. So for those who are unfamiliar, Sustainable Capital Finance, or SCF, is a third-party financier. We operate primarily in the commercial and industrial space, providing energy as a service. SCF operates very similarly to a developer, as we work directly with solar integrators, whether that's an EPC or a developer, property owners and businesses, or business owners, schools, municipalities, and nonprofits to bring projects from concept to completion. We can step in at any time in the development cycle and have strong financial backing to ensure the projects are executed at a high level. And this is shown by the fact that we have over $500 million in counting in contracted distributed generation. Now on to SCF's offerings, and this may be a reminder for some and potentially new information for others, but SCF is exclusively a takeout financier. We do not offer loans or debt financing of any kind. Our primary offerings come in the form of a PPA or ESA where applicable, and which for us is really a necessary component of most projects we'll take a look at. Now, I think as most of the industry has become aware, the standalone PPA certainly doesn't pack the same savings punch it did 12 years ago. However, it's still a super valuable benefit to a site host. Being able to secure energy pricing for the next 20 to 30 years is a huge benefit in being able to forecast expenses, as well as hedge against utilities and the volatile nature of their pricing. It's also a great way to meet ESG goals and attract customers or employees to your business who understand and appreciate the value of incorporating renewable energy now and into the future. And even at sites where a solar PPA may not make the most sense, whether due to space constraints or rooftop that is in need of repair, or what have you, or maybe even a low avoided cost. Maybe this is a market where PPAs just aren't penciling very consistently and providing savings. In that scenario, a battery energy storage system might make the most sense, and specifically where it can be used for demand charge reduction and or time of use arbitrage. Ultimately, the value of the PPA or ESA is still strong, but as the industry faces hardship from increasing FEOC restrictions, as well as the phasing out of the solar ITC, it's really important now, more important now than ever, to bring value to your customer and present them with an option that not only saves them money, but generates them revenue. And that's why SCF is so steadfast in incorporating EV charging stations in addition to PV or battery for a customer. And the goal with incorporating charging stations for us is exactly right. Exactly that, right? Allowing the customer to participate in revenue share upside indirect of the benefits tied directly to the solar and or battery. And as you'll see as we work on projects together, the value in the revenue share upside almost always trumps the PPA or energy storage system savings that a customer might see over the course of the term. And we understand some sites may not warrant charging stations, and or the utilization projected is in many ways that, right, a forecast. And so that's why having an offer to present to your customer that has clearly defined energy savings and benefits in the form of a PPA or ESA, in addition to significant financial upside through the form of the charging revenue, and the ability to work with a proven system owner who is highly incentivized to make sure the asset is running as efficiently as possible, not only checks one box, but every box, and is an effective way to shorten the decision-making timeline and give your customer the confidence to move forward quickly. So we'll pivot now to the demo portion of today's webinar so that you can learn how to tie these all together and utilize the platform to everyone's benefit. So for those who are unfamiliar, this is the home dashboard of the SCF Suite. This will be essentially where you'll be able to access any of your created projects, as well as any of your quotes that you've ran. So if this is a newer site for any of our attendees today, I'll go over some of the basics of the SCF Suite. This is a cloud-based platform. This is your CRM, effectively. Any project that you create can only be seen by you and an SCF analyst. And it's really a playground for you, right? It's a place for you to track your projects from concept to completion. It's a place for you to get indicative feedback on your projects, right? Essentially use our calculator to determine if SCF is within range on a project, if it's worth pursuing with SCF. And also, as you'll see, we've opened up the entire country to getting indicative feedback on EV charging utilization. And therefore, you can see if your shopping center, your grocery store, wherever it's located, could be a good fit for charging stations. And ultimately, what we want to do is we want to arm you with the ability to present to your customer without having to wait for an SCF pricing or analyst. And so that's why we provided this platform for you really to track your projects, get indicative feedback, create proposals that have term sheets tied into them so that you can get exclusivity on projects with our pricing really on your own terms, right? And that's ultimately what we want to do. We want to be able to arm you with as much materials and resources as possible so that the SCF Suite becomes a go-to option for you. And in that process, you're able to shave off decision-making timelines. You're able to put information in front of customers quickly and arm them with the confidence and the ability to make decisions as quickly as they can. And also, you're able to work through your pipeline a lot quicker this way, right? You're able to see the projects that are a good fit with SCF and those that are not, right? And I think ultimately, the quicker we can get feedback on opportunities, the more time everyone is going to save. So from a high level, that is what the SCF Suite is the goal of it is for. And I hope that everyone here today will reach out to us afterwards. We'll send a copy of this webinar out to everyone, but the goal is to get you all acquainted with the SCF Suite so that's a resource and a tool in your tool belt that you get to use moving forward. So for today's purposes, we won't go through everything in the SCF Suite. We will highlight some of the changes that we made recently that will enable you to have really just more options and be able to price your projects more effectively. We'll touch a little bit on kind of the EV charging component of the quick quote, which we'll get into here in a second. And then we'll showcase a little bit of the project portal just so you can see how to do some of the features that I mentioned here over the last few minutes. But ultimately, if you'd like to set up time with an SCF analyst, we'd be happy to schedule time to do a quick demo. We have a lot of team members on our staff that'd be happy to walk you through the high-level features and make sure that you have confidence in utilizing the SCF Suite. So for any EPC installer, developer, I always start with the quick quote function here in the top right-hand corner of the screen. So I'll click this blue rectangle that says quick quote. We'll start with the solar project and then we'll move over to an EPC revenue share project. That's just for simplicity's sake. Again, happy to work through any kind of project that you have as we schedule time for a demo, hopefully later this week or in the next couple of weeks. So for any project, you'll have some basic information that you'll be asked to fill out. The project name, the host state, the expected ITC year. These are all relatively basic information we'd expect you to have ready. Now, the next step here, I always recommend having your helioscope or your PV assist up and ready so you can sort of just populate this information pretty efficiently. But let's say we have a 500 kilowatt in California, and that project's got a pretty respectable yield. And let's say for this project, my bill cost is $285 a watt. That might be higher for some or for others. We'll just use that as a placeholder for now. And so one of the new additions we've added to the solar and solar plus storage portion of the quick quote is the ability to run multiple options at once. In the past, you'd only be able to input one pricing option at a time. you would be able to compare those quotes, which you can still do today. But a new addition we've added is the ability to run multiple escalator or term options based on the inputs that you've given it, right? So let's say for this situation, we know our customer wants a 30-year term. They're as interested they're highly interested in being able to hedge against their utility, and they'd like to lock up pricing for the longest term possible. They own their site, and doing a longer term is no concern for them. They're not moving or looking to sell at any point in the future. So this is a great place to run multiple escalator options based off of your 30-year PPA term and 285 per watt all-in build costs, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll over to this options portion in the bottom left of your screen. I'm going to click this, and then I'm going to click escalator. So what this is going to do is this is going to run 3 different PPA escalator options based on the solar cost and PPA term length you've already inputted. And so you'll see here the PPA right here solving for 3 different options, 18.5, around 17 cents, 15.5 cents, based off of those 3 different escalator options, 1%, 2%, and 2.9%. And SCF does not go up higher than 2.9% on our escalators. We can go as low as a 0% escalator. Generally speaking, those are less common for us. I would say the majority of our projects sit between that 1 and 2.9% escalator range. And from a term length perspective, just to give you a high level there as well, 30 years would be the max that we would offer to a customer. 20 years would generally be the minimum. And most of our terms incorporate some element of buyout at fair market value or the opportunity to extend the PPA at a renegotiated rate. So the beauty of having these multiple options available for you is really twofold, right? You're able to see 3 different options at once. So you're able to know sort of the range that a customer might see for pricing. And ultimately, I think as an EPC or developer, having that constant communication with the off-taker, you want to be able to present them options, even if that means a cash option or a lease option as well, right? And that's where having multiple PPA options as well kind of arms you with as much information as possible so that you're able to effectively communicate to that customer, hey, if we did a 1% escalator, this is how the pricing would change. And if we did a 2.9, if we maxed out the escalator, this is how aggressive we can be in our pricing, right? And ultimately, the customer is going to dictate what they're looking for. If savings is the goal right now, then a longer term and a higher escalator makes sense. If the goal more so is I want to get as far away from my utilities volatile increase in pricing as possible, then a lower escalator in the longer term may make sense in that scenario, right? They're going to dictate essentially what they want to see. This arms you with the ability to educate them on the range of pricing, how your pricing from a build cost perspective could change these rates, right? Let's say if I tried a $3 per watt build cost, you can see how the options change in that scenario. And you can run this pricing 7 ways to Sunday and ultimately allow yourself to qualify or disqualify a project based on the different options that a site owner might see for a project. So the goal with this as well is you're then able to create a project from this pricing. And I would just click this create project button here on the far right of your screen to be able to create that project from that pricing. And that would ultimately be, in that scenario, a situation where an SCF team member could see that project created and may reach out to you for any follow-up information if we don't have a helioscope or an energy tool base or utility data, all of that information which can be uploaded to the portal, which we'll showcase here in a few minutes. So that's the big change here for these solar and solar plus storage portions of the quick quote. We're really trying to give you as many options as possible to be able to run pricing. Now, the beauty of the quick quote function here is going to be the EVC revenue share portion. And I just say that in the sense of we've really opened it up to be able to provide you feedback with charging station analysis across the country, which in the past has been really just more dedicated to the state of California. But as more sites are showing growth rate data that's strong, we want to be able to present options for you across the country, not just located in California. So As you'll see here, I actually flipped over the project type and the solar information came over with it, which is super helpful as well for not having to repeat information. But let's say I wanted to get feedback on a project. This was maybe a site in LA. And for this project, we were able to do 500 kilowatts of solar. We'll keep that simple and straightforward for now. The term length, again, would be something that you would have to dictate based on your customer's preferences. For today's purposes, we'll do, again, a 30-year term. You will see as that changes, the EPC term changes. So those will go together. And then what you'll see in the PPA rate field is the ability to either solve for a PPA rate based on what you're looking to offer to your customer, or let it be an output, right? And what the SCF Suite Quick Quote is going to do is it's going to essentially say, hey, that PPA rate we can support, or hey, we cannot support that, but here's the rate we can support. And we'll do a quick run here through it, and you'll see how that might change or may not change based on the PPA rate we're looking to solve for. So let's say it's a 15-cent PPA rate. We're going to do a 2% escalator. We're going to keep that bill cost the same. Let's say this is a shopping center, right? This is the most ideal site for a fast charger. And obviously, not every site is going to be that way, but for today's purposes, we'll do that. Now, the question of is the site within 1 mile of a highway is always going to be a very vital question, because if it's not, we're going to have to take a discount to utilization. And the reason for that really is we're signing up these customers for a longer term. And ultimately, a site will be much more risky from a utilization perspective over a period of time if they are not within 1 mile of an interstate or highway. And that's just, generally basic knowledge, right? We're not only looking at the demographic data of that city, EV growth rate data, EVs in that area, median income, population. But we'd also like to know, is there other traffic that we could potentially see at this site that's not purely dedicated to that specific area, right? Could we get something off an interstate that could potentially increase the utilization for this site? And so anytime the site is not within 1 mile of the highway, we have to take a discount for the fact that that site might just be a little bit more risky over a period of time than another site. And then from a revenue share perspective, we always want to target 10%. That is the max we would offer, but anything less than 10% for us, we would deem a site that may not be worth the risk. And I think for any site that we can't do 10%, we will try to make it work, whether that's as low as 5%. But ultimately, our target for any site is to be able to offer the most competitive revenue share we can. And then from a charging station rating perspective, really anything that's a level 3. We can look at level 2s at some sites in addition to level 3s. We've seen golf and country clubs be a good fit for that. Hotels as well, where a trickle charge charger might make more sense. But for the most part, this model is heavily dictated on being able to provide level 3 fast chargers. Charger hardware, not as concerned about for today's purposes. One thing I will note is the EDC program administrator. So obviously PG&E versus SCE is going to have significantly different charges that we would have to incorporate into our model over a period of time if we were to pull energy from the grid for our chargers. And so that, this would be an SCE site, but that would have an impact on the modeling if it were, essentially a utility that's a little bit more expensive. And then we'll ask for just the host annual usage, right? Just getting a good idea for how much we're offsetting with the solar system. I'll go ahead and hit calculate. And what the model is going to do is it's going to solve for the number of chargers, the estimate year 1 revenue share, and the total revenue share over the course of the term. And we have assumptions baked into that so that you can kind of, we want to share that with you or showcase that to you so you can kind of do the math a little bit on your own end, just to understand that we're not using erroneous data or utilization assumptions for these projections. This is obviously a site that is a lot more attractive than other sites. I would say, from our perspective, 12 to 15 chargers would generally be the max we would like to deploy at a site, with 4 being the general minimum. So that kind of gives you an idea of this site being definitely a site that's on the higher end from a projected revenue perspective. But as you can see, as I hover my mouse over the view assumptions tab here in the bottom right, EV usage escalation, charging revenue escalation, and solar PV degradation are all listed there, so you can kind of understand the math behind these projections. So from there, you'd be able to create a project. You would hit next. You'd love these terms, and then you would create that project. For today's purposes, I'm going to stop here. We do have, essentially, once you create that project, the project portal, where you're able to enter in more ancillary data for us, upload supporting docs, generate an indicative proposal, and then ultimately track that project from concept to completion as we work together collectively to get that project to an NTP stage and then ultimately to a commercialization stage. But for today's purposes, we'll go ahead and stop here. But please reach out to us. We'll be happy to showcase more of the SCF Suite to you. And we'd like to be able to get as many as you as possible acquainted with the SCF Suite, comfortable with the SCF Suite, and ideally make it a tool for you as you work through your projects here in the next, really to finish out the year, but over the next 12 to 18 months. So we'll go ahead and head back over to the to our rest of our presentation here, and we'll talk a little bit about STF simplified process. So our goal with any project truly is 30 days, whether that's 30 days to term sheet signing or 30 days to contract execution. That depends entirely on the specific size and scope of the project. But either option usually always starts with getting familiar with the SCF Suite, as I just mentioned, and learning how to price your own projects. The less time you waste waiting for financiers to give you feedback on a project is the time that you get back. I generally encourage all of our EPCs and developers, like I said prior, to schedule a demo with us or watch one of our tutorial videos to make sure it's a tool in the vast tool belt that so many of you guys wear. Now, the next step is to secure all customer info, including, most importantly, a site design and avoid cost analysis. Usually this comes in the form of an energy tool-based report, and if possible, the last 3 years of audited or CPA reviewed financials. From there, we can price the project and put together a proposal/term sheet for your customer review. And again, this is something you're able to do via the SCF Suite as well. And we're aware that working with all different types of entities, that some term sheet review periods will take longer than others. That's why we are cognizant that each project timeline is malleable to its needs, and goals should be reflective of that, right? So as soon as that term sheet is signed, our operations team will kick into full gear to diligence the project as efficiently as they can, as contract agreements are prepped and eventually shared with the prospective off-taker. If all goes swimmingly, we can have contract execution in 30 days. If the term sheet review period is longer than expected or diligence items take longer than expected to recoup, we can have contract execution in 45 days. Either review period keeps us very much on track to meet each project timeline milestone and ultimately push that project forwards to completion. That's all we have for you for the planned portion of today's webinar. We'll spend some time over the next few minutes answering some of your questions that you all have. Your question box should be on your screen, so feel free to expand that window and we'll try to answer as many as we can. We again appreciate you all for being here today. So I'm seeing a question here regarding does solar and PV need to be a necessary component of every project? So I mentioned this back on the PPA ESA slide, but one thing that SCF is trying to deploy here as we move forwards is the ability to provide just standalone storage in addition to charging stations at some sites. So that'll come in the form of an energy services agreement. And we will solve for that based off of the storage, essentially the storage inputs that you provide for us, right? On a $1 per kilowatt hour basis based on that storage size. I think for us, being able to provide something in lieu of a PPA, where maybe it's a standalone ESA, could allow us to be a little bit more flexible for sites in the past where solar just doesn't make sense, as we relayed before. We have that option now available in the SCF Suite as well, so happy to kind of showcase how that looks as we're able to schedule time with you guys more individually to go over that. Again, a question here regarding some sites that are maybe better than other, or states that are better than others when it comes to EV utilization. So, we're looking at, for us, a few options, right? We want to be able to have a site that has good inflow and outflow, right? A good 30-minute use case. So whether that's a shopping center, where they're going to be able to hop in, to buy something from that shopping center, or a grocery store where they could spend 30 to 45 minutes grocery shopping, or even a gym where, a workout may last 30 to 50 minutes. A site where we have good inflow outflow for a 30-minute period, and there's facilities that a customer could utilize, right? Whether that's a bathroom or purchasing something at that site. I think in the past we've looked at churches, we've looked at hotels, we've looked at sites that maybe don't have sort of that solid foundation when it comes to a customer being able to be at that site and utilizing the functions at that site. And so for us, it's really a question of, are we meeting those basic requirements? And then from there, how can we utilize demographics of that area in addition to proximity to an interstate to really build up a site that makes sense to incorporate, whether it's PV storage and charging stations, PV or just storage and charging stations, or just PV and storage in some scenarios as well. We're really happy to kind of make that offer and present that offer to you. That makes the most economical sense. And that's, we've looked at a lot of projects over the last 6 months where, from an economic use case, that's always the strategy we're gonna deploy, versus electric use case where, ultimately there may be situations where the pricing just does not make the most sense for that customer based on maybe what's being proposed. Just had a question here regarding the webinar. Yep, we'll make sure this gets edited and put together, compiled for you guys here in the next couple hours, hopefully by end of day. Great. I think that's all we have for today's webinar. We appreciate you all joining. We look forward to connecting with you all, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Thanks again.